How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Killmark Collectors. Today, we're going to be talking about the T9 ship that you are probably going to be upgrading to if you're flying a Prophecy right now, the Dominix. While there are a lot of similarities, there are 4 key differences that I want to talk about today to help you really get the most out of this ship. So let's undock and get started. If you're like me, the Dominix is a natural progression in your PvE journey. I went from a VNI to a Prophecy, and now I'm taking the next step up and going into the drone battleship for the masses. Now, there are a couple of things that are a little bit more nuanced when it comes to the flying of the Dominix itself. So one of the things that I really want to talk about today is less of the fitting and how to get the most out of this ship from a tanky build or a DPS build, and more focus on some of the specific things that you need to keep in mind when you're actually flying this thing. So I'm going to give you 4 tips that you need to be thinking about before you get out into space and understand kind of how to address some of the shortcomings of this ship and really get the most bang for your buck. Let's start with the obvious, and that is that this thing is a beast. It is a battleship in every sense of the word, and the speed and maneuverability that come along with being a large, beefy battleship. Now, with the Prophecy, I think my align time was around 6 seconds. In the Dominix, that is over 12 seconds to have my warp prep time. When you double that align time, you really are starting to cut your margins pretty close when it comes to actually being able to make a mistake. You're flying a bigger, more juicy target, and so PvP players are going to be really hunting down these ships. I think that people are really going to be focusing on getting those fast interceptors up close and personal, trying to get under the large drones, and being able to lock these down for the rest of the fleet to come in for a big juicy kill. The thing that I would recommend is always be aligned to your safe spot. And this is way more important than it ever is. You can be at a full stop, but just be aligned to your safe spot so that you can hit that autopilot and be gone in just a couple of seconds. The way that I do this is that I make my safe spot in whatever system I'm ratting in fairly close to the sun, so that no matter where I am, if I align to the sun and then park my ship there, you double tap that thruster button and you end up with 0 speed. You can immediately hit that autopilot and jump straight to your safe spot within probably 5 or 6 seconds. This may seem a little paranoid, but when you are talking about an interceptor like a slasher interceptor that can easily clock almost 5.5 to 6,000 meters per second, even if you're ratting at 90 kilometers, you're only talking about 10 to 15 seconds. So you have to hope that they are going in at 0 or maybe on the opposite side, and then immediately you are hitting that autopilot. There's only a couple of seconds there where you have a room for error. Item number 2 is dealing with those small ships. Pretty much every other drone ship I've had in the past, having the medium drones is kind of the jack of all trades. They're great for big ships, they're great for small ships, they've got the speed, but they've also got a little bit extra firepower. With the large drones, you're talking about almost half of the velocity, and really for, again, a lot of these interceptors or anything like that, it's really easy for those ships to speed tank you. Be considering adding in either 1 or 2 medium drones to the mix of large drones, or having high slots that can deal with some of those smaller ships. I personally like to fly with 2 medium drones in my armament, because it allows me to deal with some of those smaller guys without having to go in and swap drones out or do anything like that. Because of the way that the Dominix's bonuses work, they apply extra DPS to all drones. So it's really nice that you can actually leave those out there and you really won't see a huge drop in DPS. I think that by using MK9 drones as opposed to MK7 larges, which I'll talk about in just a second, you actually only see a drop of about 20 to 30 DPS, which again for a ship like this is really not that much. Just be thinking about that, and if you do see something like an interceptor fly in, if you do want to stand and fight, which I probably wouldn't recommend, but you can do it, be prepared to immediately drop and get those drones out to mediums from larges so that you can have drones that can keep up with something that's got that speed. Number 3, I want to talk about Sentry Drones for a minute. Up until this point, if you have not been flying a rattlesnake, you have not been able to use Sentry Drone. For one, they are not going to fly. Once you drop them in space, you are not going to be able to maneuver them, and if you want to change out drones at all, you have to go and pick them up. In last week's Dev FAQs, they did mention that the loot range for these is not 10 kilometers, it is 2.5 kilometers. So just be aware that you need to be right up on those and able to swap them out. Because of this, if you're going to be using Sentry Drones for ratting, I do recommend that you, again, come to a stop, you deploy those, and then you stick pretty close to them. Because of the long range of these drones, if you're sitting out at 80, 90, 100 kilometers, they can still hit pretty easily. It's a good way to solve some of the slower flight speed of those large drones while still applying DPS pretty quickly. The other thing to understand with Sentry Drones is that just because they say that they can hit out to 90 or 100 kilometers, whatever the range on those is with the accuracy and the fall off and everything, does not actually mean that they are capable of doing that. What I mean is that the way that these drones work is that they will only target enemies that are within your control range, not their active range. So while you may be only 2.2 kilometers from the drone, and the drone itself might have an optimal fall off and accuracy and everything of over 90 kilometers, if your drone control range is only 84 kilometers like mine is, then you won't be able to hit anything past 84 kilometers. It's an important distinction because of the way that the accuracy fall off works. If you are going to be using these drones, I recommend putting an extra drone control range on there just to give you a little bit more breathing space and really take advantage of the long reach of these drones. Number 4, the last tip here, is to look at the actual ROI of large drones. As I'm recording this, MK9 Sentry drones and large drones versus MK7 drones are 7 to 10 times more expensive. Normally I'd say go for it, splurge, this is going to be a ratting ship, no problem. But I think that we're going to see those prices drop pretty quickly if they haven't already. And so at least in the start, and depending on when you're actually flying this ship, I would recommend that you take a step back, you look at what you really need it for, and if that extra little DPS bump is worth it to you. For example, if you were to equip 5 Warden MK9 drones, those are going to run you almost 100 million versus only 10 million or so if you were to equip the MK7 variant. For most people, I don't think that a 90 million ISK increase is really going to be worth it, but again, up to you, and you can kind of see what you're thinking. Let me know down in the comments if you disagree, if you think that it would be worth it. For maybe some PvP, if you were trying to do something by yourself, maybe that extra little DPS is worth it. For PvE, I think you're only going to end up clearing stuff maybe a couple minutes faster. So I don't really think it's worth it at this point. Once those drones get down and they're more reflective of what we see with the medium drones, and I think that point it may be worth it, but right now just take a look at it, make the decision for yourself. If you're rolling in ISK, go for it, but I think that you'll get a lot of the same functionality, and it'll still be a big upgrade from the Prophecy or whatever else you're using. So that's it, guys. 4 tips for helping you fly the Dominix, getting yourself out of that space turkey into that space potato that we all know and love, and really being able to see a little bit of what the battleship life is like. Also, leave a comment down below if there's anything that you think I missed that would be really good for a new Dominix pilot to know. And of course, as always, if you haven't already subscribed, would really appreciate it if you hit that as well. It's always nice to just know that people are actually watching, and I'm not just talking to myself, because that's what people do in quarantine. But either way, thanks so much for joining. Good luck with that Dominix. I hope that you're able to have as much fun with it as I have been. And until next time, fly safe.